the most brutal and bloodthirsty commander of the Tibicana mercenary army, sent a letter to Princess Shania. In it, he proposed a contractual marriage, one that would benefit both sides. 2 weeks had already passed without a reply. Princess Shia Lyanna Arzac reread the letter again and again. Her counselors were deeply troubled. They claimed the commander was a true barbarian, that his people knew nothing of decency. His closest aides could not understand how he dared to make such a proposal, especially knowing that Her Highness was already engaged. Lyanna asked her officials what would happen if she refused. She reminded them that they knew perfectly well the castle lacked the strength to resist the invaders. Sir Veros insisted that Arzac still had the will to fight, and that he himself was ready to die for his lady. Lyanna replied calmly that the Tibicana army had been besieging the castle for half a month because of this very proposal. The commander had cut off all supply routes. With regret, she reminded them that the water and food reserves were nearly exhausted. The people were weary, and the soldiers had lost faith in victory. The mercenaries surrounding the castle were the most ruthless forces in the world. No one dared to face them. To do so would mean certain death. Even Lekis, the greatest kingdom on the continent, had been forced to surrender and sign a humiliating peace treaty. For Tibicana, besieging the half-ruined land of Shania was nothing more than cruel entertainment, like hunting a helpless rabbit. Lyanna concluded that resistance was meaningless. Time was running out, and soon her people would die of hunger. She announced that she would accept the proposal of the commander of Tibicana. Her counselors reacted with shock and anger, accusing her of recklessness. She did not even know what kind of monster she was agreeing to marry. Lyanna replied that she had heard all the rumors, especially the most horrifying ones. One of her aides whispered that the mercenaries preferred men over women because women who shared their beds never survived such cruelty. Sir Bose cried out in outrage, asking how she could even consider marriage if their partners died during the act. Lyanna admitted she knew those barbarians were monsters, but she doubted a man who intended to kill her would bother proposing marriage. She believed the mercenary leader did not plan to murder her. Sir Veros begged her to reconsider and remember Lord Felter, who had gone to the Kingdom of Shark to seek help. He was the princess's true love, more precious to her than her own life. She remembered his promise to return within 10 days, yet far more time had passed. Since then, the Felter family had done nothing, merely watching from the sidelines. Severos reminded her that they were the most powerful house in Shinsia and could not be ignored. Lyanna refused to debate further. As heir to House Arzac, she would pay this price to protect Nock and save her people. An hour later, a negotiation tent was erected near the castle walls. However, the commander's seat remained empty. Sir Veros was outraged, claiming such people knew nothing of courtesy. Lyanna said quietly that at least the delay gave her time to prepare herself. Lord Tibison, commander of the most powerful army on the continent, was said to be born of the god of war and a mortal woman conquered by his strength. Legends claim the god of death cursed him so the earth rejected his flesh, condemning him to endless battles from which he could never die. Lyanna resolved not to show fear. Suddenly, Sir Veros heard horses neighing, people shouting, and the clash of steel. He believed battle had begun and assumed Lord Felter had returned with reinforcements. Joy filled Lyanna's heart. She believed Nock was saved and she would not have to accept the proposal. Her counselor urged her to flee to a safe place and assess the situation from afar. As they rushed toward the exit, a blinding light filled the tent. A man stood at the entrance. He apologized for his lateness. Lyanna was struck by his towering build, broad shoulders, and immense hands. The smell of blood clung to him. She realized instantly this was the bastard of the god of war. Despite his grim presence, he was breathtakingly handsome. He explained that an urgent matter had arisen, but had already been resolved. He invited her to sit. Lyanna forced herself to remain calm. Just because he did not look like a savage did not mean he was not dangerous. She said she was pleased to meet Lord Tibison and asked why he had kept her waiting. He replied that enemy forces had ambushed him. Lyanna believed reinforcements truly had arrived, but masked her relief. She suggested postponing the meeting, claiming he must have more important matters to attend. He refused, saying everything was already settled. He ordered his aide to bring something. When a blood-stained sword was placed on the table, Lyanna recognized it immediately. It was Lord Felter's weapon. Her beloved had died. The Lord stated coldly that this was proof his affairs were concluded. He demanded her answer. Lyanna trembled but forced herself to speak with composure. She reminded him that in Shinsia it was improper to bring weapons to a discussion of engagement. Without hesitation, he hurled the sword to the ground, embedding it halfway into the floor. He said he meant no offense, only to show that whoever stood in the way no longer existed. Lyanna realized she had gravely underestimated him. He intended not only to marry her, but to claim everything she possessed. Like a predator playing with its prey, he waited. Lyanna knew she had to escape this trap without provoking bloodshed. She lied, claiming she had already shared a bed with her murdered lover. Then she struck back harder, declaring she carried Lord Felter's child. Shock spread across the tent. With a calm smile, she asked if he still desired marriage. She warned that regardless of any alliance, the future ruler of Nock would be her son, and Tibison's blood would never rule the land. The commander paused. The cost was higher than expected. He asked if she would recognize the child's right to the throne and still agree to marry him. Lyanna was stunned. He added that she would be allowed to give birth, but from that moment on, she and the child would belong to him. After the negotiations ended, Lord Tibison offered to escort her and extended his hand to help her mount her horse. She admitted she was unused to such gestures and initially refused. He promised that things would be different in the future. His confidence moved her, and she finally accepted his hand. He noticed a small wound on her palm, but paid it no mind. He ended their farewell with a long, protective kiss upon her hand. As Lyanna departed, his aide protested fiercely, reminding him that their goal was to avoid bloodshed and gain control over Nock. Marrying a pregnant princess was too high a price. Lord Tibison agreed, but said that from now on they would rely on Her Majesty. His aide could only stare in disbelief at the sudden decision. Lyanna recalled that Lord Tibison had always shown complete indifference toward the opposite sex, which had given rise to countless unfounded rumors. The Lord calmly replied that he understood he could not force Her Highness to love him if her heart already belonged to another. He added that the child meant nothing to him. At that, his aide burst into laughter. Did the Lord truly expect love in return? Vermose remarked that Tibison's absolute confidence in conquering the princess suggested he had loved her long ago. The Lord explained that he merely wished to reclaim what already belonged to him. His aide was perplexed and assumed he was referring to Nock. But why would such a powerful man need such a poor nation? Perhaps it concealed a past he did not know. Lord Tibison ordered Firos to calm himself and stop prying, as if he feared revealing too much. Lyanna Arzac gazed at the sunset and thought of her beloved, who had once begged her to trust him. Felter had pleaded with her to believe in his feelings, even though his uncle insisted on their engagement. She wept, remembering how he had sworn to convince her, even if it took his entire life. In her heart, Lyanna bid him farewell and wished that in the land of the dead he would find someone who loved him with the same devotion. She had never allowed her fiancé more than a kiss. Their relationship had always been purely contractual. The Felter family had pushed for the marriage for the sake of power. Though Lyanna had used her influence for her own benefit, she had also, in her own way, exploited her late fiancé. She resolved to conceal the truth about the child. Still, she doubted whether she could deceive a man whose gaze resembled that of a bloodthirsty predator. Her thoughts were interrupted by Sir Malou calling her name. She apologized and asked him to continue his report. He announced that the city's reserves had been replenished and would now last 3 months. Thanks to her strict cost-cutting measures, Lyanna finally breathed a sigh of relief. However, her advisor urged her to stop being stubborn and raise taxes, arguing that a 20-year drought would not end overnight. Lyanna refused. She would not force her people to suffer further. Though the advisor insisted that higher taxes would stabilize the situation, Lyanna admitted he had a point. Revenues had been declining year after year, regardless of trade alliances. For the first time, she felt relief in her decision. Accepting the Lord's proposal had been the right choice. Sir Midlo pointed out that she had acted hastily, adding that she should have consulted the Felter family first. Annoyed, Lyanna replied that she would contact them to coordinate the funeral arrangements. Sir Midlo noted that the royal family must observe mourning, as the deceased had been the heir of the Felter lineage. Lyanna remarked that such a display of respect might offend her current fiancé, so it would be wise to speak with him first. Her counselor was outraged, questioning how she could concern herself with the feelings of a savage. He warned that the Grand Chancellor would be horrified by such words. A chill ran down Lyanna's spine. Lyngdon Felter was undoubtedly furious. He had planned to seize control of the country through his nephew's marriage, and now everything had collapsed. Anger flared within Lyanna. That man had already plundered her land endlessly, yet it was never enough. She dismissed Sir Malou, instructing him to leave the necessary documents on the table. As he departed, he warned that the Felter family had long-standing ties to Knockham, and ignoring them could cost both the country and the princess dearly. Left alone, Lyanna realized that even during mourning, politics consumed her thoughts. Glancing at the clock, she noted that Lord Felter's body would soon be brought to the castle.